Hey folks, welcome. Bob here. You know, a few years ago, I put together a 5 video module series called the No-Brainer Home Plumbing Inspection Checklist. I thought I was going to be able to sell it, but let's face it, plumbing maintenance is not a glamorous subject, so I decided to release it here on YouTube. Now, last year I put up the water heater maintenance module. Last week, actually, I put up the water and drain module. This week, this current video you're going to watch right now is all about laundry room maintenance and two of the most important items you ought to be looking at to avoid a catastrophe. So sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy the video. Leave your comments down below, both good and bad. Hey, I'm from New York, folks. I can take it. And I will see you at the other end of this video. Hey, welcome, folks. Bob here from Bob'sPlumbingVideos.com. On this channel, I provide free plumbing tutorials for people who don't want to call a plumber. No scientific data, no fancy chemical breakdown of the materials I use in these videos, just common sense solutions to everyday plumbing problems. After all, folks, you shouldn't have to take out a mortgage to be able to afford a plumber. If you're new to the channel, I highly recommend you subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit that bell notification so you'll be notified of when I post a new video. Now, let's get into this video. Oops, I almost forgot. Get lost. Welcome to the No-Brainer Home Plumbing Inspection Checklist, a simple strategy to identify and avoid a plumbing emergency. The laundry room. This is where I get into some interesting finds. The laundry room is host to two overlooked items, one which can cause massive water damage and the other fire. Let's look at all the possibilities. Faucets, shut-off valves and supply tubes, the drain system, washing machine hoses, and finally, the dryer exhaust vent. Faucets. Where to look? I look for leaks around the handles. If you have a laundry sink with a deck-mounted faucet, water could leak from the handles and onto the deck, and that could eventually work its way onto the floor or just leak into the sink and be one big inconvenience. I look for leaks from the base of the spout where it connects to the faucet. Again, that'll leave water leaking onto the deck. Leaks from the spout would indicate there's an internal problem with the faucet. If that's the case, you have two choices: call in a pro to fix it, or if you're handy, by all means, go ahead and repair that faucet. And finally, leaks from the faucet base, meaning if the base of the faucet wasn't properly sealed, water will get under it, work its way to the mounting holes of the sink, and work its way down to your laundry room floor or cabinet if you do have a cabinet under your laundry sink. Why you should care? Well, knowing where to look can uncover minor leaks before they turn into plumbing emergencies. This could save you hundreds or even thousands in unnecessary plumbing repairs. Let's check it out in this technical timeout. Okay, and here we have a shot of a deck-mounted laundry faucet. And again, what I look for, as with all faucets, are when I turn it on, I'm looking for water coming out from below the handles. This is the cold side. I look for water on the hot side, as well as by the nozzle here. When you turn these faucets on, often what will happen is water will come out of here, and water will come out of here, and water will come out of here. And if this faucet is not sealed correctly, water will go underneath it, because these are hollow body faucets. And to better demonstrate that for you, let's jump up on top of the workbench, and I'll give you a better example of what I'm speaking about. Okay, folks, let me bring up this laundry faucet, and this particular laundry faucet uses ceramic disc cartridges. And when I turn on the cold water and when I turn on the hot water, I'm looking for water seeping out from below the handles. In addition, I also look for water leaking from where the nozzle gets inserted into the faucet itself, and that happens because the O-rings go bad. And let me put this down. I'll bring up the nozzle, and you have a series of O-rings on the nozzle, and over time, from this thing turning from left to right, left to right, left to right, these O-rings will actually flatten out, and they will in turn allow water to leak out of the spout where the nozzle gets installed into the base. And these are things I look for. It'll actually leak out of here. And the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that when you install this faucet or any faucet, you have to put plumber's putty on here. This little dinky plastic gasket is not going to make it watertight, so you must use a nice ribbon of putty all around the perimeter of this faucet, and then you would set it in place, because bear in mind, folks, this faucet is just plainly a hollow-bodied faucet. And a lot of times I would get on the job site, people would buy their own faucets, and this would be nowhere to be found, be missing. If that's the case, I pack this entire cavity with plumber's putty. I'll have it where it's sitting above the base, so that when I sit this into the sink and start to tighten down the lock nuts, it'll actually squeeze out and form a nice watertight seal. So folks, if you have one of these gaskets on here, these gaskets aren't going to make your faucet watertight. You must seal them with putty, or you can also use a latex-based silicone caulk. Clear, that's what I use if I don't have putty with me. But there you go, some more reasons why water leaks out of the faucet onto the deck of your sink and possibly through your sink. All right, folks, I want to show you a couple of examples of why water may be leaking through the nozzle. At the same time, I'll show you why water seeps up out of the handles and onto the deck. First, I'm going to show you this traditional faucet stem. And that works simply, you know, the on and off function, in and out. And that works with a rubber washer, which sits up against a faucet seat. And the faucet seat is located inside the faucet. You really don't see this. And if the washer is in good condition and the seat is in good condition, we have a watertight seal. Often, though, you'll have a seat that's all cut up and it's all corroded, or you'll have a washer that's worn out, it's dried out, it gets hard like a rock, and that will cause water to seep through your nozzle when you turn the handles off, and that's going to need attention. Another reason water may be leaking up onto your deck through the handles is these O-ring washers. These O-ring washers wear out, and they will cause water to seep up onto the deck. Now, let me show you this. I'm going to pull out this stem, and there is another washer in here. There's another O-ring washer. So O-ring washers are the way they prevent water from getting out and up through the handles. And when those O-ring washers get dried out, they will cause water to leak. So that's one example in a traditional style stem. Now, bear in mind, stems come in many shapes, sizes, forms, and many manufacturers. This is just one. This is not, you're not going to see this particular brand all over. It's just one example. And another example I want to bring up is the ceramic cartridge. Now, ceramic cartridge is just what it says. There are two ceramic discs in there. And as you see me turn this, that's on, that's off, water on, water off, water on, water off. Sometimes dirt will get in there, debris will get in there, little shavings will get in there, and that will cause the faucet to leak when you turn the handle off. And the other reason you're going to get the water up and through the handles are the O-rings. These O-rings get compromised, they get dried out, and that's what's going to cause the water to leak up and coming out of here. There are actually more O-rings inside the stem. If I pull this stem out here, that you're going to see that there are more O-rings in there. But I just wanted to give you those examples of why a faucet may leak from a nozzle, and again, why the water leaks up and out the handles. By identifying these small problems now, your chances of a plumbing emergency will be greatly reduced. Let's review. We looked at faulty stems, packing nuts, or O-ring washers. We also checked out a worn faucet spout. We looked at faulty washers, seats, and stems. Even showed you a ceramic cartridge. And we also checked for missing or worn sealant from the base of a faucet. Shutoff valves and supply tubes. Laundry room sink shutoff valves are rarely ever used. When they're needed, the first person who attempts to use them, your plumber, will cause them to leak. Folks, it happens to me all the time when I'm called in to repair a faucet and I go to shut off those valves that are under the sink. Because they've been in there for 20 or 30 years, inevitably they end up leaking uncontrollably from the handles, and I ultimately end up having to put 2 new valves in. So if you're going to do this yourself, a word of warning, take a little bucket or a pot with you, because you're probably going to need it. Why you should care. Faucet supply tubes are under constant water pressure, and if they decide to burst when you're not home, be prepared to get out your wallet. These type of plumbing emergencies can be very costly. Where to look? I look for worn packing nuts, dried out packing. I look for leaks where the supply tubes connect to the water supply valves and or the faucets. Let's check it out in this technical timeout. All right, let's check out an emergency water shutoff valve. We have these under our kitchen and bathroom sinks. And they've been in there for 20, 30 years. First person who comes in and touches them and goes to shut them, they start to leak uncontrollably from the bottom. This is normal. And in the past, we would just go and try to tighten this clockwise in an effort to get it to stop leaking. But because everything in here is so dried out, we would then go in and back off the stem. Actually, after we shut the water off, don't forget, folks, we have to shut the water off before we do something like this. And you're going to see that there is a nylon washer in here. It's a backup washer that actually is backup for this rubber washer. If I can get it out to show you, there is that rubber washer. There's that rubber washer in there. And that rubber washer gets so dried out that it can't do its job. It actually just cannot stop the water. So you would go in there and put some Teflon packing or graphite packing. But in today's world, I would tell you, just go change the valve. Don't play around with it. Have a professional come in. If you're handy, by all means, go out and buy a new emergency water shutoff valve, and you are going to be back in business. So that's this type of valve. If you don't have this type of valve, you might have the old-fashioned globe valve with the adapter in it to put the basin supply on. These are a little more fixer-friendly, meaning that you can back off this packing nut, replace that rubber washer in there with some graphite or Teflon packing, tighten up this nut again, and you're back in business. And then it's just a matter of deciding whether you're going to use the flexible basin supply. In this case, this is a flexible supply. You have the compression part of it, and then you have the part where it's crimped onto the hose. This is where I look for leaks. And then you have the other end, which actually goes up to the faucet. And this will work as well on the emergency water shutoff valve faucet as well. This goes on here like this. Again, these are things that I look at when I'm doing my inspection. I'm looking for all those connections. And if you don't have the flexible stainless steel versions, you may be fortunate enough to have the solid copper versions. And again, we'll be looking for signs of leaks where the compression fittings are. And we're also looking for signs of leaks where it connects up to the faucet. And that's it on emergency water shutoff valves that I typically find under kitchen and bathroom fixtures. Okay, folks, let me just bring up one item that I advise you to get rid of if you do have. This is a nylon braided supply tube used for hooking up faucets, used for hooking up toilets. And I can tell you from experience that these braided nylon hoses, I've actually seen these crimps. I've actually seen the hose just blow right out of the crimp. And this happens in particular on hot water, on the hot water side when they're hooked up to faucets. Now this happens to be one for toilet supply. But folks, if you have these are accidents waiting to happen. And if given a choice, I would tell you to go either with the braided stainless steel versions. This is for a basin, but they make them for a toilet. This is what's most popular today. But you know, in my world, I'm always old school, and I like the solid copper version of a basin or a toilet connector. But the fact of the matter is, what you're probably going to find out there on the shelves are the stainless steel versions. So once again, folks, if you have this braided nylon version, please do yourself a favor, get rid of it. And so that's all I have to say about nylon connectors. Don't use them.
Modern methods for connecting faucets have become more user-friendly. As a result, these methods leave more room for failure by virtue of their design. By performing this inspection, you'll identify minor leaks before they turn into plumbing emergencies. Folks, when I started, we actually hooked up faucets with solid brass pipe. That evolved into the rigid copper connectors. Today, everything is flexible stainless steel or flexible plastic. They just have more connections where they're crimped. And there's just more things to go wrong. But that's the way it is in today's world. So I guess being an old timer, I must accept these things. Let's review. We looked at faulty leaking shutoff valves, and we also checked out leaking plastic or braided stainless steel supply tubes. Folks, if you have a leaking plastic supply tube, or better yet, if you have a supply tube that's plastic and it's not leaking, get rid of it, because it's going to leak. Guaranteed. The drain system. In the laundry room, your washing machine may discharge into a laundry sink or a standpipe. Let's take a look at both. While you should care whether it discharges into a laundry sink or a standpipe, a lint filter of some kind is recommended. It doesn't take much for these drains to clog, causing water to back up and overflow. In addition, you'll want to make sure the drain pipes under your laundry sink aren't pitted or corroded, causing water to leak onto the floor. Where to look? I look at overflows from a clogged standpipe, overflows from a backed up laundry sink. Folks, it doesn't take much for lint to get down these drains and cause these things to stop up. And I sure hope you're not going out when you do your laundry. Somebody should always be home, because these things can just accidentally happen. And when those sinks or standpipes go over, the water gets all over the place. Also, check out leaks from unsecured drain hoses. These drain hoses sometimes will pop out when the machine starts to discharge. I usually tie mine down with a nylon tie or a piece of wire. I also look for leaks from corroded waste tubing, cracked or corroded coupling nuts, and finally leaks from where the P-traps screw onto the galvanized waste pipes. If you have brass P-traps, brass and galvanized do not mix, and over time the galvanized will rot. Now, if you have PVC drain lines, it's not a problem. You're good to go. Let's check it out in this technical timeout video. All right, we're underneath this laundry sink, and what I'm going to do, as I've stated in the past, I'm going to fill this sink up all the way to the top. Then I'm going to pop that plug, and I'm going to check the integrity of this tubing, check the integrity of the trap. And in this case, this is all brand new stuff. This is pretty new. This homeowner had this done recently, so everything's looking pretty good here. But again, I go under, I run my hands all over the trap. I run my hands around the strainer here to make sure there is no water leaking through the strainer. And these are little things that could potentially turn into big things later on. And if you can see back there, we have the emergency water shutoff valves. I'm going to run my hands around those handles, around the packing nuts. And in this case here, I see we have a couple of flexible stainless steel supplies going up to the laundry faucet, which is fine. Very common today. And again, these are the steps that I take when doing my laundry room inspection. All right, folks, one thing I recommend here, as you can see, here's the waste hose dumping into the laundry sink. And when this machine empties out, it empties out pretty powerfully. And this hose, believe it or not, will jump right out of the laundry sink. So I would recommend, when I usually do, I'll drill actually a small hole through the sink here from the inside to the outside. I'll just tiny little hole, and I'll work a nylon tie through there, and I will actually tie this hose down with a nylon tie, because again, that washing machine comes on, and this thing will come right out, and you'll come home one day and that water will be all over the floor. So there's another tip for you in terms of trying to avoid a little mishaps when your washing machine is emptying out. Always tie these down, because I pretty much guarantee you they end up flopping off and discharging on the floor. Okay, and as you just witnessed, I like to secure my waste hoses to my laundry sinks by drilling a small little hole at the top of the sink. I use a nylon electrical tie, and I just secure that hose, keep it from popping off. Now, if you don't have a laundry sink, you most likely have a standpipe. Now, the standpipe could be exposed, could be behind the wall. Generally, they're a minimum of 36 inches. I run my standpipes, when I install them, up to the top of the back of the washing machine there where the controls are. I've seen them often run at the top of the machine where the cover is, but I run them, that extra 6 inches or so up to the top of the machine, which is just a little more insurance for me. Because if you could see inside that standpipe when the machine actually empties out, it probably fills up about a third of the way before it actually starts to drain out. And if there's any lint stuck in there, that pipe will actually fill up, fill up, fill up until eventually it could come out the top of the pipe if the drain is completely stopped up. I've often seen guys run 18-inch tall standpipes, and when the machine empties out normally with no stoppages, water will actually come out the top of the pipe. The other thing I'm going to recommend to you guys is to put a lint trap at the end of the hose, whether it's dumping into a laundry sink or dumping into a standpipe. They're pretty much commercially available. You put them on the end of the waste hose, it'll catch the lint. So it may be an inconvenience to you to clean the lint trap, but you know what? Better the lint go in the lint trap than fall into the sink, because then you're going to have to call a guy like me. So let's move forward. We'll look at some clips of some waste tubing underneath the laundry sink, and then we'll go into a little explanation about what happens between brass P-traps and galvanized nipples. There's a little reaction that happens that causes the nipple to rot. I find it mostly under kitchen sinks, but it applies to everything. Wherever you have brass, wherever you have iron, whether it's a kitchen sink, a bathroom sink, or a laundry sink, you're going to get the same reaction. So let's move on. We got a lot more to cover.
Okay, so here you're looking at a 2-inch by 1.5 inch swing T, meaning this T here can service an auxiliary sink as well as the master sink coming out of the top here. And these brass P-traps screw onto these galvanized nipples, which come out of the wall, the rear of the cabinet generally. And the problem arises over time that because we have a galvanized pipe here and a brass P-trap, we get this process called electrolysis, which happens over time. And eventually, when I open the cabinets to kitchen or bathroom sinks with this type of connection, the bottom here gets all blistered out over time and rusted out. And to show you that, I'm going to give you a real good example of that. We're going to go into a little screencast shot I did. And I took the following picture you're going to see off of my phone. And it was actually from a job, an actual job site that I came across. And I just wanted to show you what you should be looking at if you have a brass P-trap under your kitchen or bathroom cabinet and it's screwed onto a galvanized piece of pipe. So let's jump into the screencast, and I think you'll get the idea.
Okay, folks, we're going to talk a little bit about electrolysis. Now, as you just saw on my bench, I show you an example of a relatively new P-trap with a relatively new galvanized nipple, but in real life, this is what I find. As a matter of fact, this picture was taken on my cell phone off of a job I recently did. I was called in because the lady had a leak, and sure enough, the water was leaking at that joint there. But a lot of times I'll be called in to maybe clean a stopped up sink out, and I will explain to my customers that, once I put a snake in there and that snake starts flopping around, I'm going to actually cause that to leak if it isn't already leaking. On the other hand, sometimes if it's a bad stoppage, I'll have to take that P-trap off, and pretty much when I go to take that trap off, it's pretty much going to break right off. But this is what happens in the real world, folks. I look for this when I'm doing my inspection. I find this mostly under kitchen sinks, but on occasion I'll find it under a bathroom sink, because today, there are so many different materials today. But mainly where I find it is under a kitchen sink. And again, it's that crazy word called electrolysis. And this is what happens when you have two dissimilar metals meeting. And in this case, you get the brass trap meeting with the galvanized steel pipe. And over time, this is what happens. So I would suggest, if you're going to take a look under your kitchen sink, you might want to look on the bottom of the cabinet. You'll see rust marks. Sometimes you'll see a little rust stain down there. And that should prompt you to get under there with a flashlight and take a look, because if it looks like this, that's something that's going to need attention. Again, if you're handy, you can do it yourself. On the other hand, I would advise you to call in your licensed professional to take care of it. But again, this is what I look for when I'm doing my home plumbing inspections. Okay, folks, here we are underneath the laundry sink. And as you can see, I'm looking for signs of water where the strainer comes through the sink. Again, I'm checking these nuts. These are die-cast nuts. And as we can see, we have a tubular tailpiece coming down into a PVC trap. And that PVC trap, like all PVC, pretty much is bulletproof. But I get under the sink and I'm looking for all possibilities. And as you can see, we have the emergency water shutoff valves there. And again, the premium
copper connectors going up to the faucet. And once again, these are the items I look at. I fill the sink up to the top. I pop the plug. And if there are any weak spots, guarantee you folks, I am going to find them. So this is how you go about doing these inspections. Very, very simple. Very, very, very little time is needed on your part. You can go through this whole process probably in about an hour, at least I do. And again, this is what you have to do to avoid possible problems with plumbing emergencies, because the last thing you want to do is call a plumber in. Trust me. I know. I'm a plumber.
By testing the standpipe and laundry sink drains for proper drainage and taking an occasional look under your laundry sink, you could spot a leak early enough and get it fixed fast before causing damage to your floors. Let's review. We looked at clogged standpipes and or laundry sinks, leaks from unsecured discharge hoses, corroded waste tubing, cracked coupling nuts, dried out or missing gaskets, and finally corrosion where the P-traps screw onto the galvanized drain pipes. Washing machine hoses and washing machine hose bibs. Burst washing machine hoses are one of the biggest causes of major water damage across the country. Most homeowners don't shut the water off in between washes. As a result, when a hose bursts, the damage can be massive. Folks, people think I'm crazy when I tell them to turn off the water supply in between washes, but I wish I had a dime for every time I was called into a customer's house and they were screaming they heard water down the basement, and by the time I got there, the water was up to the first or second step. And when I eventually made it down to the basement, there was the old rubber washing machine hose flailing away and just dumping water into the basement. Why you should care. The offenders here are old dried out rubber washing machine hoses which can fail without any warning signs. In addition, it's extremely important that your hose bibs are functional. You don't want to find out in a time of need that they don't shut off the water supply. Where to look? If you have washing machine hoses that are 5 years or older, I strongly advise you to replace them. Occasionally, test your hose bibs, also known as shutoff valves, to make certain they shut. Let's check it out in this video.
All right, folks, here we're looking at a pair of washing machine hoses that have apparently been changed. They're the stainless steel versions, which is something I recommend if your rubber washing machine hoses are 5 years or older. There's a brand new stainless steel washing machine hose. And as you can see, they're installed quite neatly on the hot and cold water supplies to the washing machine. And again, if you're not doing it, I recommend closing these valves in between each wash. And with round handle valves, you would turn them clockwise to the right to turn them off, and counterclockwise to the left. Or as I've heard referred to, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So there you go. If you forget, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So again, these washing machine hoses were changed. And this is a good thing because this homeowner will have peace of mind that those old rubber hoses will not burst and cause one big mess.
Okay, for all of you people who think I am crazy about telling you to shut off your washing machine hoses, let's take a look. Now, this is a pair of sad-looking hoses, I must admit, and you can see where that hose there on the left has got a nice big bubble in it, and that hose on the right is not far behind. And you notice those crimp connections? Well, I've actually seen those things blow right out of the crimp connections. Not necessarily the hose is split, but they blow right out of the crimp connections. And to the people who think I'm crazy, I can't tell you how often I've gotten calls from customers saying they heard something in the middle of the night. They didn't know what it was. They opened up the door to the basement and there the water was up to the first or second step. And by the time I get there, I mean, I got to go into the truck. I got to get the boots on. And, you know, what I'm doing initially is I'm looking for the main water valve because, you know, I don't know what's going on. But I've seen these hoses flailing around, just whipping around all over the place. And it's from that point on that people start to shut their washing machine valves off in between washes. You know, I don't say this to be like unrealistic. I'm just telling you from real world experience. This does happen, folks. It absolutely does happen. And if your hoses are 5 years or older, I really suggest you go out and get yourself a pair of stainless steel hoses, braided stainless steel hoses, and get into the habit of shutting off your water in between washes. Trust me, you're going to save yourself a lot of grief and a lot of aggravation. So there's my take on wash machine hoses. I'm a big advocate of shutting the wash machine water supplies off in between washes. My wife does it, but she's married to a plumber. But I would tell you, if you're currently washing your clothes and not shutting the water supply off in between washes, I strongly suggest you shut it. You will be one happy camper. Unlike braided stainless steel hoses, the original rubber hoses supplied with your machine will often fail at the crimped connections. This usually happens at the hose bibs or at the rear of the washing machine. Burst washing machine hoses will cause massive water damage. Let's review. If the original rubber hoses supplied with your machine are 5 years or older, replace them with modern braided stainless steel replacements. And occasionally test your hose bibs to make certain they will shut the water off in your time of need. Dryer exhaust vents. This is another area of the laundry room that gets neglected. Your dryer vent exhaust should be inspected at minimum once annually. Why you should care? Because items like the dryer vent exhaust are often out of sight and out of mind. We take them for granted. You may not be aware of it. More fires are caused by clogged dryer vents than you may realize. Where to look? I look for flimsy, flexible plastic dryer vent hoses, excessive dryer vent lengths, excessive number of 90-degree bends through the vent run, and also, if your clothes are not drying properly, you most likely have a clogged dryer vent or your dryer vent is way too long. Let's check it out in this video. Now, this is one thing I just wanted to show you. You don't see this too often, and I guess in this case, they didn't have access to run a vent out, and they sell these, but I don't advocate using them. This is what they call an indoor dryer vent. And basically what you do is you fill the bottom up here with water, and the idea is when the dryer exhaust blows into this canister, the lint gets trapped in the water. I'll tell you this, folks, in the winter it may be nice and cozy and nice, you got that nice warm moist air coming out, but in the summertime it gets humid, it just wreaks havoc in terms of dampness down your basement. And I can tell you something else, I find that people do not replenish that water in the bottom part of this canister, and what ends up ultimately happening is that the lint goes all over the place. So tip here, folks, find a way to exhaust your vent to the outside. Don't use one of these indoor dryer lint traps, if you will. Not a great item. I would not use one if I were you. Okay, folks, when was the last time you had your gas dryer vent exhaust cleaned? Probably been a while. Well, folks, take a look at that photo in the middle, that plastic slinky looking stuff. Look at all that lint inside. That is a fire waiting to happen. And I can't tell you, this is what I find most of the time. If you check out that illustration on the far right there with the little grumpy looking faces, this is what I find in most people's homes. They use that plastic piping or that aluminum looking slinky stuff. And this is what happens, and they cause trapways for the lint to get caught. And the end result is either the clothes don't get dry or they end up causing a fire. Better way to do it is the illustration on the left there with the rigid aluminum vent pipe and a minimum number of elbows. I like to use the rigid aluminum pipe. If I can't find it, which is very rare, I will use the flexible aluminum pipe, but it's got to be aluminum, not that white plastic slinky looking stuff, or not that shiny, faux aluminum slinky looking stuff. Folks, my recommendation is to keep it to 15 feet or less with the fittings. Now, I've seen online certain charts that tell you can go as much as 30 feet with rigid aluminum vent piping, but I don't buy it. If you're going to go that far, and I know in certain cases, you have no choice but to, run extended lengths of vent pipe. They make booster fans. You can put a booster fan on that to get the lint out. You got to get the lint out. When I clean these things out, I go from the outside. I'll stick a drill in there with my extensions and my brushes on. I'll go inside the building. I'll have my shop vac on the other end. And as I'm running my drill in, I'm sucking all that lint out. So folks, you need to clean your dryer vents out at least minimally once annually. In my own house, I have a 15-foot run, and I actually do it twice annually. It's amazing to me how I'm sitting on my patio, and when my wife is drying clothes, occasionally I'll see the lint come flying out of the vent extension or the vent termination, and kind of tells me it's time to clean it out. But anyway, there you go, folks. You must clean your dryer vents out. Probably, I don't know what number it is on the national list of causes of fires in homes, but it's pretty high. Go online, go on Google, check it out, and see what the frequency is of homes that catch fire because of stopped up dryer vents. And that's it, folks. Word to the wise, clean your dryer vents. If you have flexible plastic vent hose, get rid of it. Substitute flexible aluminum, or better yet, rigid aluminum vent pipe. In my experience, the maximum developed length of the dryer exhaust, including 90-degree bends, aka elbows, should not exceed 10 linear feet. Now you can push it to 15 feet. I actually did it in my own home, but you're only going to do it with more frequent cleanings. That's the only way it's going to work. You're going to have to clean it instead of once annually, twice a year. Let's review. We looked at different vent hose materials. We also looked at maximum dryer vent lengths, including 90-degree turns. I recommend an annual dryer vent cleaning at minimum. And before you call for service on your dryer, check for a clogged vent or an excessive vent length. Folks, if your clothes aren't getting dry, the most common cause is a clogged dryer vent, and the second most common cause is a dryer vent length that far exceeds the manufacturer's recommended specifications. So there you go, folks. The laundry room. Two of the most overlooked items, those washing machine hoses, which can burst because there's pressure in them all the time, and your dryer exhaust vent. You can cause a fire in your house, folks. You have to have that looked at least once annually. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. What I'm going to do is post up here to my right is the water heater maintenance module and also the water and drain module, which I released last week. They're both from the No Brainer Home Plumbing Inspection Checklist. I got two left, the kitchen and the bathroom, both lengthy, just like this one, but I think you're going to get a lot of value out of them. Folks, I want to thank you once again for stopping by and watching my videos. I look forward to seeing you as always. Stay well and happy plumbing.